Well, good afternoon and welcome everybody to another episode of the Carrier SG Technology Podcast. Our guest today is Dean Rowen of ComAudit. Not only is Dean a partner and a colleague, we've known each other for over 20 years and have worked together. Truly one of the great people I know, but of course, I'm biased. Dean has over 25 years of experience in the telecom and accounting industry, been actively involved in over 200 telecom auditing projects, integral in bringing online telecommunication auditing tools such as the exact chargeback solution and so much more. Dean, great to have you on the Technology Podcast. Tell us a little bit about ComAudit.
Thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, for those of you that don't know anything about telecom audits, I mean, that's what we do. ComAudit, Technology Solutions. We go into mid-size enterprise companies and we do cleanup projects. And what that means is we look at the voice services, the data, internet, wireless. We look at billing. We look at contracts. We build inventories. And the whole goal of a project is that when it's completed, a company is only paying for services they're actually using. They're paying as little as possible for those services. They understand what all those services are. And at the end of the day, they have a baseline or a foundation to make better technology decisions moving forward. So that's the company in a nutshell.
Nice. Well, that's a great broad perspective, but we know how deep you can go. Tell us this. What surprises you the most about the work you do for companies when you run into a company? What jumps out at you?
Well, I think what stands out for me as far as from a surprise perspective, companies can reduce costs probably 90% of the time just through cleaning up and understanding what they have. It doesn't even require them to make changes. I mean, there's just enough waste there, not paying attention to things, even with sophisticated tools and technologies. And I think what surprises me is how often companies really don't want to take that close a look at it. How there are a lot of folks internally that they're busy, they're overwhelmed, they have budget, and whether or not they're paying for services that they don't use anymore, I mean, it's not that important to them. In fact, to the contrary, sometimes folks get concerned that if we uncover a bunch of savings opportunities, that it might reflect badly on them. And so that is something that I think continually surprises me, with the work that we do. And I don't want to say we have clients that absolutely love us and are so grateful we're there, and because we're able to see things that they're not able to see. But that is something that is fairly prevalent out there, and it always surprises me.
Well, here's another thing that I think I found in working with you is companies feel like they're going to have a lot of work to do. That's not the case, is it?
No, not at all. But that's still an area of concern. People are overwhelmed. People have got too much going on, and they get afraid. And so I understand it. It still surprises me, but I understand it. So.
Right. Well, there's a good question. I bet you get asked this a lot. Are there areas within the company's spend that typically yields the greatest savings?
Yeah, that is a great question. And the answer to that is no. I mean, wireless is an area that we see a tremendous amount of savings opportunities. Companies focus on a good contract versus really aligning a contract to the consumption patterns of the organization. And so oftentimes, that is an area that's just ripe with savings opportunities and cleanup opportunities. Another area that we often find things, during the pandemic, people made a lot of changes as far as staffing in offices, remote workers, those sorts of things. And through change, there's billing issues that come up. So a ton of savings there. As far as also inventory, a lot of times companies, close down sites, but they never fully eliminated all the services that were billing at those sites. And so, again, it's just really across the board, but there's invariably opportunity, and it's just about where we find it within a particular organization more than anything else.
We find that as well, Dean. As you know, we've talked about this when the pandemic hit and everybody started working remotely, and companies realized that maybe they didn't need all the physical buildings that they had.
Yeah.
So they're downsizing and saving money on real estate, but they haven't looked at all the telecom implications. So
right. Yeah, we did a project for a big energy company, and they had they were still paying for services at a location that had been demoed. You know, anyways, nothing was there anymore. But the carrier still had their services hooked up in their central office, so legitimate charges.
They were billing.
Yeah, they were going to bill. So, yeah.
You know, that kind of leads me into a good question, because we run into this a lot, and I know how you handle it, that there are ways to handle it. But what about the copper line situation in the industry today? That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, and people that are listening might say, who the heck cares about copper lines? I mean, they're cheap phone lines, but that's where the problem is. A lot of the big carriers are doing away with their old services, and as a result of that, they're increasing the charges. So a phone line that used to be $30 can now be $600, $700. It's crazy. Elevator lines, direct connect lines, we've seen those upwards of $1,500 a month for an individual elevator line. We have a client that had about 15 of them throughout their organization. And can you imagine? I mean, they're literally paying an extra $20,000 plus a month for a handful of elevator lines, and they had no idea. So there are options available to companies. There are technology options available. There are contractual options, carrier options. I mean, there's lots of things that a company can do. A lot of these lines probably don't even need to be there. So absolutely, they're important. They need to be addressed. And we look at all the different options and what might make the most sense for the client and work with them on that.
So the message you're saying is don't panic. There's ways out of it, but you really should look at it. And,
yeah, absolutely. It needs to be looked at. Something that you wouldn't think was important really needs to be looked at. Absolutely. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, we see it a lot too. Our final question then is, and it kind of ties into it, how has new technology impacted your business, or maybe everybody's business? Does it make it easier for you, more challenging, savings-wise in the telecom world?
Yeah, you know, I get asked that question a lot, and it's up in the air. I mean, I love how technology has made things easier for a lot of companies. You know, the ability to not have to deal with premise-based equipment and move phone systems in the cloud, and you know, there's just so many opportunities for companies to leverage new technology, and yet we still find the same issues. You know, billing changes and the bills aren't accurate, or they've migrated to some new technology and they haven't done a good job of getting rid of the old technology that they were replacing. And that's one of the values in working with a company like yours, because when they work with somebody that's a direct salesperson for a technology provider, they're concerned about getting the sale. That's what they want to do, is sell new business. They don't care about the old business that's being replaced, and having a partner that can, have a path for them to take is truly important. And when we're doing a project, in addition to just cleaning things up, we'll look at if technology can have value for a company to take advantage of, and we'll show what the ROI would be associated in doing that, and then we'll help ensure that they're actually going to get that ROI, and that's something that is critically important. So excited about how technology has impacted our world, and we still have to be careful as we take advantage of it.
Right. Well, for all of you out there listening, there's some few tips to take away. One, look at your bills for your copper lines. Two, have you moved and done things? And if you want to do it on your own, of course you can. But if you would like to have the professional, reach out to Dean Rowen at ComAudit Services. All his information will be following the podcast. Dean, always a pleasure. Can't wait to work with you on the next project.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dean.
Bye-bye.